Peace and blessings, family. Brother Shareef, live and direct, coming from the great state of PA with the hour of power, trying to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people and myself. So again, this is Brother Shareef with the hour of power. Go to Hour of Power, Shareef Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel. Just go to Hour of Power like it says there. Hour of Power. Shareef Hamid, Shareef, right there, Hameed, and you'll be tuned in with the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. Peace to the brothers who have tuned in already. You could be doing anything, but you're listening to me. I appreciate that very much. Family, earlier today here in York, PA, I was interviewed and on a panel discussion with a channel and a podcast, a radio station, so to speak, called Bussin' It Up, with my good brother Tino, Wayne, and a good brother by the name of Elijah, a young brother. And we even had a brother tune in from Africa, brother Fude, and he was dropping some knowledge on some family issues that we could do better with, and how to deal with our emotions, culture, and different things that go on in Africa. I mean, it was mind blowing. Not because I was on it, but because of the format that Bussin' It Up channel, provided for us. Again, that's my brother Tino and my brother Wayne Scott, who will also be having the Trey and Boo Classic here in York, PA. Coming up June 23rd at Penn Park. So again, if you can look online, those who are friends with me, I'll repost it once the brothers edit the panel discussion and the interview. I will make it available again for us, for the listening audience. Like I said, it was powerful. And the podcast is called Bussin' It Up. And they have hip-hop artists on there, but it's not just about hip-hop. They discuss anything that's going to empower our people, almost like what the Hour of Power does. So we're not in competition with each other. We are working together to uplift our people. Shalom, Queen Karen. Peace to my brother Timon there for tuning in. So I'm not going to be long tonight. But this study that I put on the post for tonight, it is something that all of us, I believe, need to hear or be aware of because of the things that a lot of us have been exposed to, and a lot of things that we are in denial of. Anything that you are in fear of and you don't take it up straight on, no matter what it is, then whatever that thing that has you in fear has mastery over you. We, including me, have to take on our fears straight up. And it is evident that a lot of black people and Latino people, and really all people, that as we know, this channel is designed for the upliftment of our people, because everyone else has resources to help them through their trials and tribulations, but we have very few resources, and the ones that we have as evidence, it's very ineffective. So this study that came out maybe 20 some years ago, write this down if you can, because once again, the Hour of Power is bringing knowledge and information that a lot of other resources isn't. This is called the ACE Study and Survey. The ACE Study and Survey. ACE is an acronym that stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. That's where they get the word ACE from. ACE Study, Survey, Study and Survey. This study and survey came out about 20 years ago by healthcare providers. And what it does, normally I don't have a bunch of notes because it makes me nervous. But when I'm quoting certain things, I like to make sure I'm quoting it right. So this ACE study that came out, and it was for all people, that came out many years ago. First, healthcare providers used it, but then they kind of went away from it because they were kind of reluctant to ask these questions, because there's some very personal questions and they were very uncomfortable asking these questions, so they kind of went away from it. But now people in the healthcare field, the mental health field, have come back to it because it's so much trauma, so much neglect, and so much abuse, particularly in this population, that they feel it necessary to bring it back around to help people, so to speak, that have suffered abuse, trauma, and neglect. And many black people have suffered abuse, trauma, and neglect. And again, when we had this interview, this panel discussion earlier, we talked about the reluctance of how black people will not get mental health for a large part. They'll go if their knee hurt, their back hurt, if they got high blood pressure, diabetes, we'll typically go for that. Some of us, black men, could be kind of stubborn when it comes to health, but we'll go for our knee, our back. But very rare do you hear black people say, I'm going to see my therapist. I need to go talk to my counselor. I'm a therapist myself, and I know the importance of mental health. And very rare do black people, either because of a lack of resources or it just being so taboo, do we go get mental health treatment. And if you don't get mental health treatment, it's obvious how so many of us are out of control in our community, that we're not getting a mental health treatment either because of a lack of resources or we just refuse to go. So this ACE study, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, talks about abuse, neglect, and trauma that children have experienced. And listen to this, and listen to this good. In this ACE study and survey, so it's a study and a survey, and I'm going to go over the survey at the end. I won't be long, but please, please, please listen to this, and at the least share it with someone else that may benefit from it. With this ACE study and survey, which again stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Let me turn this off because I want you to hear me good. I just do that to get people, in the mood, so to speak. In this ACE study, it talks about if a youth don't get these issues addressed by the time they're 18, and I'm going to tell you what issues they're talking about, they are going to be at a high risk for chronic disease like heart problems, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, and it could take 20 years off their life. I'm going to say it again. With this ACE study and survey, which I'm going to tell you what the things are that they say we should be aware of. If a youth, an adolescent, don't get these issues addressed, meaning physically or mentally, by the time they are 18, they say they are more prone to chronic disease like high diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart problems, and it can even take 20 years off their life, and they can be subject to mental health issues and substance abuse issues. So what are these risk factors that they're talking about? Again, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. This is the hour of power, or Brother Shareef. Physical abuse. Many of our children, and children in general, are being physically abused. Yes, I ain't talking about you stole a cookie or something and you got the belt, because many of us have different perceptions on what discipline should be. I ain't talking about no belt if you step out of line. I'm talking about physical abuse. Another adverse effect with this ACE study, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences, sexual abuse. You know how many black children have been sexually abused, and Latino children and white children? But again, this channel is designed for black children. Sexually abused. It's like a family secret, a dark family secret. Even people in my family have been sexually abused, and no one wants to talk about it. And then when you try to confront the perpetrator, so to speak, the family members and sometimes even the victim will protect them. This is a deep, dark secret that has to be addressed and has to be dealt with. And if it was up to me, the perpetrators of these crimes of sexually abusing children, we will be talking about them in the past tense. In the past tense, their blood would be dripping from a pole and running down the street like a gush of water. But that's not up to me. Physical neglect and emotional neglect. These are risk factors with this ACE study and survey. Intimate partner violence, in other words, domestic violence. Do you know how many of our women get beat and are being beat, and no one says another deep, dark secret, and no one says nothing about it? Domestic violence. I've done whole talks on it. It is absolutely horrific how our sisters are being beaten. And when America has a cold, black people have the flu. So whatever statistic is afflicting them, we get it 5 to 10 times worse, no matter what it is. Substance misuse, another risk factor for the ACE study. Mental illness, we've already talked about it. So many of our people suffer from mental illness and refuse to get help. And I ain't saying you got to get medicated, but at least talk to someone. Have someone you can talk to. I'm a counselor and a therapist, and I have a counselor and a therapist that I talk to. Everyone needs someone to talk to and to vent to navigate through their problems. There's nothing wrong with that. Parent separation or divorce, another risk factor for the ACE study and survey. An incarcerated member or someone who has been to jail. Man, justified or unjustified, it is thousands and millions of black people in prison. We talked about that earlier on the interview that I did, the amount of black people that are incarcerated. So again, these are traumatic and stressful events that lead to you being a risk factor with the ACE study. And again, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Adverse childhood experiences. Sister there said that, thank you for sharing that, sister. And I apologize for the goddamn Negroes out there that don't got the balls and the heart enough to admit that they're wrong for putting their hands on our sisters. For every sister who has experienced any kind of abuse, but especially physical abuse, for the goddamn punks and Negroes who feel that they're justified in putting their hands on you, I apologize to you on their behalf, even though I've never put my hands on a woman, and I'll never do it, not in my right mind. So for the Negroes and the demons and the devils that have done this to you, I apologize to you for you suffering from that. And that's real. So again, those are the risk factors for the ACE study and survey. And again, this been out for years, but healthcare providers were reluctant to ask these kind of personal questions, which I'm going to go over right now. And again, listen to this. They said if these issues, these stressful and traumatic issues and events that have happened in your life, if you don't address them by the time you're 18, either by counseling, therapy, or physical, because if you're physically abused, you could have been hurt. If you don't address them, you could potentially develop chronic disease like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart problems, depression, substance abuse, and it can even take 20 years off your life. Just in the last couple years, I have buried uncles. I've told you about my sister and my brother who have passed away. If they were here right now and if they were honest, they would say yes. Depending what it is, I've been physically abused, sexually abused, either mentally abused, physically neglected, emotionally neglected, intimate partner violence. Another one on here, mother treated violently, which is intimate partner violence, substance misuse. I've seen people with mental illness in my house. Parents have either been separated or divorced, or an incarcerated member in my house. Just think of whether they're family members or friends who have died a premature death or who are suffering from a chronic disease. Ask them if they've been exposed to any of this. Now, I just went over briefly the ACE study briefly. Now I'm gonna go over with you the ACE survey. And now these are 10 questions. I gotta soften the mood a little bit because I know this is rough. Family, but I believe we really need this. I believe we need this. Soften the mood a little bit. Now, the ACE study, the ACE survey, and again, they said if these things aren't addressed, you can take 20 years off of your life. Now, these 10 questions, they say if you answer yes to like 2 or more, you are at great risk for your mental and emotional health, and even being prone to substance